Okay, so continuing on with our discussion in this video, Zach, go ahead and start scribbling out on the whiteboard some of the things that you have written in the outline.
Well, some of this is kind of stuff that we touched on generally, even just in getting our initial concerns about the system itself. But it's good to at least make these official. So really, I see this
there you go.
as a concept going in one of two ways. And one being, let's not even repeat the word central. Let's just say kind of kiosk-based. And you see this kind of thing in games such as Star Wars Galaxies, which I'll just abbreviate with SWG. It's just a single location that players have to walk up to and interact with, and actually right-click or hit a button or something, or at least stand within a certain radius of, because potentially it could get kind of busy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that, an interface comes up where they can see all of the jobs that are currently listed. That's just one way to look at it. And there's no reason why we have to choose one of these over the other. Of course, the other way is more of the mobile approach, where can players just access this at any given time, no matter how and where they are, no matter what they're doing. Now, one of the things that had been brought up earlier is that the two of these really could be branched by way of skills. So if you're completely unskilled in communication skill X, which could be called anything. It could be called your ability to pick up and use an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Then you really need to be walking over to the kiosk and actually hitting it. If that gets old to you, then you train up on this mobility skill that allows you to access the job board more remotely. You could have several levels of this skill, which basically make your access more and more mobile. So maybe the first stage allows you to access that central job board within whatever city it happens to be housed. And we've seen that kind of behavior already within World of Warcraft, where you can't access city chat unless you happen to be sitting inside of a city. But as you increase your levels of this skill, you could make it further and further out until maybe there's really not much of a limit in terms of distance, but maybe now it's the problem of, do you have a clear signal?
Mm-hmm.
Is there inclement weather getting in the way? Is it damn solar flares making it hard for you to get to the central job board? And then eventually maybe you've got a skill that even bypasses that to a certain degree. So that's just one of the things that I considered. You could, instead of choosing one of these, you could say, well, let's have them both, and let's just branch them by way of a skill that somebody has. Now, the other thing about the overall accessibility of it is whether or not you do want to make a central job board more restrictive to a current area based on its contents. Not really a question of whether or not you can access the thing, but if you're in a certain location, do you only see jobs that pertain to that particular location? You even see this today with like Google searches, where a lot of the things that you search for will grab your local area first, depending on what it is you're looking for. And you could do that sort of thing as well. Do we restrict how far somebody can see in terms of their jobs? And I think that may end up becoming a balancing question that we have to kind of ask ourselves as we get deeper and deeper into the system.
Thoughts?
Well, I mean, what does Craigslist do? It allows you to post things anywhere from anywhere and allows you to just click on which city you want to look at. So in that case, it's both. It allows you to see the stuff in your local city, but it also allows you to see things outside of your city. And I don't know if that's something. I think that's something that could be useful. Maybe something you have to level up a skill to get, just to see, just to accept a job in another city, if that's a really good job that you want or something, or you're going to that city anyway, and do you want to accept a job, or I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying completely. And that's I went ahead and wrote it down just because that's one of the ways that I hadn't quite considered looking at this is just maybe you start off with something like a map and you just click on whatever city you'd like to go work in and you see what's available there. You could, if you really wanted to get clever with graphical interfaces, you could have some sort of visual feedback to give you something about job density in certain areas. So you can make your decision a little more quickly. I need a job, I need it now, and it looks like there's a lot of jobs over here in this area. Cool, let's open up this city and see what they've got. But that's kind of drilling down a little bit too far into the subject at hand. So the next thing that I have listed down is that generally speaking, I see two types of information coming out of this whole thing. So we have jobs for hire. Let me try that again.
NATO, move your mouse just a little bit away from your mic.
And we have looking for work. Now, this is a direct reflection of what we see already inside of like EVE Online, where they have contracts up, and then you can also just post, hey, I'm available for job X. But it could go a lot further than that. It could also take the place of things like City Chat in World of Warcraft, where somebody gets on and says, hey, tank for hire to run dungeons. You can have that kind of listing up there and just say, hey, I'm available to go do X, Y, or Z, and let people know immediately. Now, I have an entire discussion, actually, over especially how jobs for hire could work. But I'm wondering if anybody has anything else that could be listed in a central job board that we may want to examine or talk about or discuss before we get too far into details in either one of these categories. I mean, do we look at it more like Craigslist? Do we also potentially not think of it just as a job board, but maybe something a little bit more...
like a news feed?
Like a market?
Like a news feed or a market. Do you open it up that far? And I know we can't dive too far down that, but I did kind of want to feel out how people thought about, what if you did think of it more like Craigslist? Because Craigslist has jobs listed, but they also have goods listed, And would you want to combine the two, or do you guys think it would be better to keep them separate so that you have, something like an open market and you have something like a job board that are two entirely separate systems? Were there any thoughts on that?
The thing is, I think from the human end, certainly with all this talk of, mobile accessibility and so forth, really fundamentally, it's good to have them work in the same, or be presented in the same fashion. And if you're going to be, sorry, let me just start that thought again. If you're trying to get at the market as opposed to the jobs list, you're still going to be accessing it via exactly the same ways. And it's the sort of thing, I found this in Eve, you do the two things at the same time. You go out and do some shooting and killing, and then you come home and sell some stuff and sort through what you've got and look for other jobs and talk to people, and then you go back out and kill some more. So really, the two things are going to be... I don't see the need to separate them fundamentally, but obviously you'd want a way to, you're not going to want, you're going to need filters.
Absolutely.
User-definable filters, ideally.
Well,
there's nothing more frustrating than being told you can't sort a list by the way you want to sort it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's just a really simple question, though. It's, in the future, how do you think that's going to work? I mean, Craigslist is wildly successful. I mean, what works for humans now? And having Craigslist, having both jobs for hire, looking for work, and market altogether, it works really well. It's very popular.
And that's exactly how I would envision the future staying. We're going to want to grab our paper-thin newspaper that's more or less just a display now, and we have access to everything. Be it, basically, we're on the nets. We can, look through our news feeds. We can look through the markets. We can set filters. We can jump over and take a look at what jobs are available. But we're all, it's one central location that I can do this.
Right.
Okay. So we're at least open to that. Now, we don't have to discuss how the market aspect of this works right at the moment.
Yeah.
Of course. But I just kind of wanted to, again, feel out whether or not people were open to that, or if that's something that we should consider just leaving as its own separate system. Now, from here, unless anybody else has anything to discuss, probably a good time to kind of stop the video before I jump into a big discussion over the types of jobs for hire that I have.
That's fine. It just helps to keep everything nice and focused.
I realize we're not quite to the 10-minute mark yet, but it's kind of a big chapter heading.
Is that good, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we'll just pick up in the next video. Thanks a lot.